Thank you very, very much. Wasn't last night great? My goodness. Some of the pundits were saying, well, what do you think President Clinton is going to tell us? And I said, he's going to tell us why we're in the mess we're in and what we need to do to get out of it. That's what he's going to tell us. How about that? There were so many good lines last night, weren't there? I'm here with two of my daughters, my two daughters, rather, and 21 and 20. And Grace, this morning when we were all stepping over curling irons and all that other stuff in the little room we're sharing in the Maryland delegation, she said to me, she said, my favorite line was, he even hired Hillary. It was a tremendous night last night. How about Michelle Obama's speech on opening? Like many of you, I've had the honor to attend a few Democratic National Conventions. I don't believe I've ever heard a better speech than what Michelle Obama gave on that opening night. It's really good to be with all of you. You all have a pretty state, and I've spent some time there because my daughter Tara goes to the College of Charleston. And so we actually vacation for a week. Don't tell them back home in Maryland, you know, because you get in trouble if you're not in Ocean City, Mary. You know how that is. But when we moved her back, we were down there on Sullivan's Island, and you all have a great state. It was my honor to serve with Mayor Riley, one of the best mayors in the entire country. I mean, this guy, usually people get sick of you after just 2 terms in any executive job. And you just swore Mayor Riley into his, what was it, Mayor, your 10th consecutive 4-year term? That is outstanding. And this guy has never lost his passion, his vision, his creativity, his ability to bring people together. So, Mayor, you have a beautiful city. I mean, it really is. I had not spent time there until my daughter went to college there. But, wow, what a tremendously beautiful city you have. And then your cousin, Secretary Riley, we traveled to Ireland together on President Clinton's very last trip to Ireland, and we had a good time there. You know, President Clinton sometimes doesn't always run on time. And I brought my guitar with the Maryland delegation. Secretary Riley and I traveled together on Air Force 2, and we were there with the American delegation. The President was supposed to have arrived in a little town called Dundalk at, say, around 7 o'clock. He was about 3 hours delayed, and so we entered into a holding pattern with my guitar in a little pub there in Dundalk. And by the time President Clinton showed up, we were all like, yeah, whatever, tell him take another hour, take your time. We're good, we're good. It's also great to see him by. And Senator, your father, I think, spends a lot of time on the eastern shore of Maryland these days.
He lives in your state.
He lives in my state, in Easton. And Senator, my mom's from Indiana. And my granddad on her side was actually chair of the Allen County Democrats all through the Roosevelt years. And so I consider myself part Hoosier on my mom's side. And it's great to be with you today as well. Governor Hodges has been my good friend, and he came to my side right after I was elected to this job, and you all had a great governor and Governor Hodges. Isn't it wonderful when you have a governor that's actually moving you forward instead of back? Boy, y'all have probably had a lot of speeches these days, huh? About speechified out? Well, we're going to have one more day. We didn't need 4. We had 3 action-packed days down here, and I don't know about you, but I feel energized to go home and to spread the gospel of hope and change and moving forward. I saw Big Shaheen and his family the other day. His little boy, is Anthony? Anthony came up, and man, what a little candidate he is. And, my goodness, you could do a Charlie McCartney routine. I mean, with that boy, he was wonderful. He came up to me and did a picture. He looked me in the eye, shook me in the hand, and then after they clicked the picture, he said, Governor O'Malley, one more thing. That's a very nice green tie you have. And then he walked out. He did, didn't he? I mean, it was like that boy's been here before. Well, look, I'm excited. I'm excited about this upcoming election. We're going to have 60 days when we get home. And I think President Clinton laid it out as best as anybody can lay it out. Look, we have not recovered everything we lost in the Bush recession. But you know what? We're moving forward and not back. With 29 months in a row of positive private sector job growth, President Obama is moving America forward and not back. With home foreclosures down to a lower level than they were even before he was sworn in, President Obama is moving America forward and not back. With unemployment down to its lowest levels in the last 3 years, President Obama is moving America forward and not back. With an auto industry and a manufacturing sector that's adding jobs for the first time since the 1990s because of his actions, President Obama is moving us forward and not back. Now, we're going to hear for the next 60 days these other fellows saying that they want to take America back. And you all in South Carolina have had an experience as to exactly what back means. I mean, these guys, like your governor, I mean, she ran on a promise of restoring your economy, and then when she gets in, she runs on an agenda of reducing your personal freedoms and your individual rights. Rolling back women's rights, rolling back workers' rights, rolling back even basic voting rights. What the hell do any of those things have to do with moving us forward and creating jobs? Hey, like Mayor Riley, I'm old-fashioned. Before I got demoted, I was a mayor. I actually had to get things done. There wasn't a Democratic or Republican way to pick up the trash. There wasn't a Democratic or Republican way to improve public safety or improve the health of families or the children in your city. You do what works. You bring people together to do tough stuff now. Not just for us, but for our children and for our children's future. I think we need more mayors in Congress, frankly. I mean, if we could just trade in 20 of these nutty Tea Party House Republicans and replace them with mayors, we'd do a lot better. I'll tell you what, maybe we even do that. Maybe we can engage in negotiations, and we tell them, you replace 20 of your nutty Tea Party Republicans with any 20 Republican mayors you want, and our country would have a better shot at moving forward and getting things done. But let's be honest. Let's be honest. Their Tea Party, it's a lot more like Alice in Wonderland than it is like Sam Adams, isn't it? They're a lot more Mad Hatter than they are James Madison. In our state, these are some of the things we've done. You know, we're the middle state that stayed along with yours. It was one of the original 13 colonies. And over the last few years, instead of wallowing around a pity party, wrapping ourselves up in the ideology blanket, sticking our head in the sand, and somehow convincing one another that if we dismantle our government, we'll come through this Bush recession quicker, instead we did what our parents and what our grandparents did. We invested in today. We invested in the talents of our people. We invested in infrastructure, education, innovation. And last year we had the 9th best job growth rate of any of the 50 states. Instead of cutting education, we invested record amounts, Secretary Riley, in education. Did it happen easily? No. Did it happen painlessly? No. We actually raised what was the 42nd lowest sales tax in the country. We raised it by a penny, and we put every single penny into our kids' future. And as a result, for the last 4 years in a row, Maryland schools have been named #1 public schools in America 4 years in a row, and that never happened before. Only state among the 50 states that froze in-state college tuition. Why? Because we know that the more families we send, that the more families that can send their kids to college, the better for our economy. It's just like our parents knew with the GI Bill. The more highly educated every generation is, then the more opportunities there are for everybody. We didn't wave a magic wand to do that. We invested. We invested so that those costs wouldn't be shoved off to college kids. We extended health care coverage to 400,000 people, half of them poor kids. And we've been able to drive violent crime down to its lowest levels in 30 or 35 years. The city of Baltimore, over the last 10 years, has achieved the biggest reduction in overall crime, that is property and violent crime. Biggest overall reduction of any major city in America over the last 30, 35 years. I rattle those things off for this reason. Progress is a choice. Job creation is a choice. Whether we move forward or whether we move back, that too is a choice. I'll leave you with this final story. Our state, like your state, played a pivotal role in the founding of our nation. And we also played a pivotal role in what we refer to as the Second War of Independence. And we're celebrating the bicentennial of the War of 1812. At the birth of the Star-Spangled Banner, true story. Washington had been burned to the ground just south of us. The people of Baltimore could look to the south and they could see the sky glowing from the British Army having burned Washington to the ground. And the British general, General Ross, he said that he was going to march on Baltimore. He was going to dine there, because Mayor Riley, even then we had great restaurants, man. Baltimore, we had really good restaurants. And then he was going to burn Baltimore to the ground. But the people of Baltimore, instead of running away, they came together. They came together as one. With their mayor, they dug trenches across what is today Patterson Park to block the land assault. And out at Fort McHenry on the peninsula there, they had built their own fort. Thank you very much. The merchants there sunk their own ships across the mouth of the harbor so that the British men of war could not get further up there. And among the many stories that we told in that pivotal battle where we actually repelled the British, my favorite one is this one. The Star-Spangled Banner, giant flag, 15 stars, 15 stripes. And the Sam Smith and the commanders of Baltimore had the foresight and the belief to go to a woman-owned business, Mary Pinkersgill, and her daughters, to ask them to sew together that giant flag because they believed they would prevail against that shock and awe force. But that flag was sewn together, not only by Mary Pinkersgill and her daughters, but also by a black, indentured, 13-year-old servant girl, and her name was Grace Wisher. Think about that. Your Star-Spangled Banner, sewn together by black hands and white hands. Hands of freedom, hands of bondage, in a country that was still very imperfect, but evolving and growing. And the thread that held those stars and stripes together then is the same thread that holds together our work today in South Carolina, in Maryland, and it is the thread of human dignity. The dignity of work. The dignity of a job. The dignity of neighbors, protecting neighbors. The dignity of every child's health. We must win this election. We have to look upon these next 60 days, not as some sort of drudgery, not as some sort of burden, not as some sort of frustration. We have to look at these next 60 days as a moment of grace that God has given us to turn to our neighbors, especially those who think differently than we do about some of these policy choices. And without any anger, meanness, or fear, ask one another, how much less do we really think would be good for our country? How much less education would be good for our children? How much less public safety? How many fewer college degrees would make us more competitive as a nation? Our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they didn't come here so that you and I and our children and our grandchildren could live in a country of less. We're Americans because we believe in more opportunity for all. And there is as a great man once said, there is an absolute direction to growth. There is an absolute direction to growth, and life moves in that direction. And life is never mistaken either about its road or its destination. It tells us towards what point on the horizon we must steer. if we are to see the dawn's light grow more intense. America's best days are in front of us. They are not behind us. And that's why together, South Carolina, we're going to move forward and not back by re-electing Barack Obama.